we're getting into Dragon Ball DAIMA.
Fucking right.
And it is, I know you talked about it on the final episodes of Subside Dubside J.
Just a
We're
little
gonna talk
bit.
about
Didn't want
it.
to go too much into what I had to say this week.
And I appreciate that. Um let's talk about kind of before we're gonna go all over the place in this. This isn't the proper lookout kind of like deep dive episode by episode, character after character, moment after moment kind of thing. We're gonna kind of talk about it as a whole and
Yeah.
kind of explain this. But I kind of want to talk about everyone's first expectations for this series because it was announced last year. Actually the year before last year. So it's announced, I think, 2023 at one of the anime conventions. And initially, I mean, people were still kind of like low on it for various reasons. And I think it was the kid aspect of it, especially when the trailer came out at that anime convention. I forgot the anime convention.
Anime
It
Expo.
might have been. Okay. Especially when the trailer came out, people were kind of down on it because it was like, oh, they're kind of retelling GT. I think people were so much wanted the continuation of Super, especially Dragon Ball fans, right? You read the manga, you know what happens. You kind of like, yo, I would love to see this animated. But a new series is a bold choice, but it may have been the right choice. I'm not sure. How do you kind of like feel about the first I'll go to you, Jay, first. The first kind of reactions towards it and especially kind of like how it ended up. Like kind of talk about that.
You know, I really tried to keep my expectations just based on what that one blurb that Toriyama had put out at the point.
Right.
Said, like, this is just going to be a continuation of the Blue Saga, something that goes into the Demon Realm. Knowing that was already an idea that it kind of existed. If you read a Japanese guidebook a long time ago, it was, oh, cool. Now we're going to get something about this idea that was just kind of a throwaway statement. But outside of that, I was just like, man, at best, it's going to be an official Dragon Ball Heroes type story. At worst, they could go into some crazy beyond GT stuff. But I was at least like, you know.
Where do you feel like it ended up?
I feel like it ended up in the middle. Yeah, I feel like it ended up paying homage to every story of Dragon Ball all the way through, including GT. And we had that little bit of this expanded lore that it always kind of existed in this thing. And it's very similar to the Demon Realm and how it worked in Heroes. It just didn't go all the way with like, oh, then there's this lore and these existed. Like they just kind of cherry drop stuff in, and I appreciate having that as opposed to this huge dump of just like, okay, and now this just changes everything forever.
LJ, how did you feel when you watched the first episode for this shit?
So going into it, I kept my expectations low. I did the same for the superheroes movie, where I was just like, listen, if I go in here thinking anything more than this is just something you learn as a seasoned anime watcher, especially a watching a series that's doing like this little spinoff or this like here's a continuation thing. You're like, hey, you keep the expectations low, you're able to take it for face value and what it is.
The initial reaction was like, "This is not what I wanted."
Like it was just funny to me because I mean they gave the hints before, like, oh, we're like a new Dragon Ball series is coming, so it's not like. I'll say this. Everyone's like super. I'm like, and I told you, I was like, it will be funny as hell if this ain't super. And when it happened,
so funny.
It was not super.
It's so funny because I was going back to listen to an episode of a previous episode of Lookout, and I remember the initial trailer when Dragon Ball Super Broly dropped. And kind of everyone's expectations for that, and everyone's like, it's the Saiyan from the future who is on the card, and it is what's the name of that dude?
Yamoshi.
There we go. It was one of those, and like we listened to it a couple years later. I listened to the episode a couple years later. We were talking about it, and we're just laughing, like, what the fuck were we on? They literally told us the first time.
They did.
It was like, so the expectations of it kind of crazy. And I think everyone, you get into this habit of like, you kind of know what you want from Dragon Ball, and ultimately they end up giving us what we wanted, right? Like at the end of we can talk about the ending very shortly, but ultimately they gave us what we wanted. AD, what were your kind of thoughts going into the series? Like, how did you feel about everything Daima related?
I think me and Jay kind of talked about it back when we were doing plug and play. We were kind of going through it too, but initially it was just I was happy with the fact that we were getting more Dragon Ball. First off, like we're back here weekly, able to consume it in a sort of a new storytelling beat that wasn't, already something animated, already something that was in the manga or something like that. It was just something fresh, something new. I kind of wanted it to be a little bit more, I was expecting a lot more because, it was a long time since we had Dragon Ball like this. So we didn't get the episode count for real until like after it started airing, I think. But for me, I wanted to see like how far can they take this story, because it's something about the demon realm, man. We already knew about Super with the angels and stuff like that. So like we're there telling another side of the story. This is just me like speculating,
no, because I was like, okay, I see. First episode, I was like, okay, that's all right. We telling it. Oh, so there's some good animation in this.
Yeah, they came out the gate swinging. Like I think they went into this knowing, like, obviously, we're giving you something that's not Super. That first episode has to draw every Dragon Ball fan in immediately. Like they couldn't really miss on the first episode because
it was an expanded story. It was an expanded episode. It was like 40 minutes,
and 32 minutes premium quality. You know what I'm saying? Redone artwork, essentially like redrawing and reanimating these scenes that have happened where an old Dragon Ball fan, like they're trying to recapture. I'm sure when they do the little marketing thing of what they send over the company, it's like, want to recapture lapsed, Dragon Ball fans and And first episode was exactly that. Like they were like, yo, retelling the Blue Saga, but also from the perspective of a new, person that kind of like, expand the plot. So I kind of want to, this is going to throw everyone for a trip a little bit, but I definitely want to get this out of the way because I want us to be able to kind of like talk about this freely. And not really hold back.
Okay.
How did you feel about the ending of Dragon Ball DAIMA?
Loved it. I loved it.
I was okay. I was okay with it.
It couldn't have gone any other way for real.
Super Saiyan 4, Super Saiyan 3s. The final battle. Talk about kind of like how you felt, especially because like essentially my thing is that they knew what the fuck they were doing.
This was I think I even said it on one of the previous episodes that me and AD were doing One Piece. But Daima, it feels like an Akira wet dream, bro. Like he was just like, let me just take all my fucking favorite things. Let me take all the best things of, and not even just Z and GT, even just the OG Dragon Ball. There's that sense of adventure. You're going to different worlds. They go to this world where there's giants. You're kind of just like, oh shit, like you're bouncing around. You getting different scenery, but then also too, you're getting Vegeta going Super Saiyan 3. Then you get Super Saiyan 4 happening with Kid Goku, and you're just kind of like, oh shit! Like here's all these pop moments where you're like, oh, like this is a wet dream.
They fucking knew that that those would be the moments. Like to me, it's like, and I'm not critiquing them for it. This isn't a bad thing, but I look at all these moments. I was like, you motherfuckers knew that you would. For me to get super excited about the series, I would have to log on to Twitter and see Vegeta with super long hair and no eyebrows.
Fuck spoilers, dog. I gotta get that off my chest. I hate it. Like the fact that I know, because the fact that like I know Jay saw it, but the fact that like on one of the streaming services
on Hulu, if you went to the episode the day it aired for both the Vegeta episode and the Goku one, there they were, just right there. And it's just like, nigga, like, can I at least watch the episode?
No, they said you gonna watch this right now.
They were like, right now, immediately. Like, oh man, they sold it. They gave you a cheap pop and it worked. I don't care. It worked.
Hey,
to me, I'm trying to figure. I'm trying to weigh that between me. Like, are these cheap pops in a sense, right? Like, Are these the do you feel like the moment
no.
that you so do you feel like the moment, so I'm trying to think, do you feel like the moment building towards these was satisfying enough, kind of like past transformations that we've had, or were they meant to kind of pacify us in a sense of like, this series isn't legit until we get one of these new things? Because low-key, I think that's what the past like 5 years of Dragon Ball new content has been. Hey, I'm gonna show you this new form, and I know you're gonna fucking love it. And Gohan go get one, and Piccolo gonna get one, and Goku gonna get like 4 of them. Vegeta gonna get 3 of them because he's not quite Goku. And you know, Broly's also here, and we're gonna put it on the manga cover too. But how did you, Jay? Please tell me how you feel, because that's where I'm kind of like in between on like this, because I love the series. Don't get me wrong, but I low key kind of like, I see what you're doing.
So and that's exactly right. Like, you have to kind of look at Dragon Ball from a macro standpoint, not just the anime, not just the manga. You got to look at it like, okay, there is a game coming out every year. There is there's Dokkan Battle that has made more money than Candy Crush, right?
Right.
Like, there's these games where like there's constant content coming out, right? So you have to take a step back and look at, okay, what are they trying to do for this whole media machine? Because at this point, it's just a franchise. It's not just like this cool thing that we like. It's Pokemon, just not Pokemon. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you look at the fact that there has to be something in these sorts of drops, they have to give us some sort of new content. The main reason being Shueisha's holding everything up, right? We would have had a super anime. You would have been seeing Ultra Ego in a game or in a figure or something like that by now. You would have seen Granola by now. You'd have seen Moro by now. Shueisha is just like, hey, yo, these are our rights. We own all of that. That's cool that y'all tried that little measure to try to take this IP and have it within that box. Y'all have all that anime stuff. That's great. But as far as everything else, we've got it locked down. So because of that issue that's going to be ongoing until God knows when, we're going to have to get this holdover Dragon Ball content that lets you know Dragon Ball is not going away. Here's a movie. Here's new characters in these little offshoot stories that we don't have to worry about where they fit. It's just a new adventure, right? That's what we're going to keep getting until everything's fixed. And when everything's going to be fixed, who knows? Who knows?
I feel like it's somewhat of a...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like it's sort of a joint venture in that same respect, because it's like, they're still going to like, you know, when Super first came out, it was the anime first, and then we got the manga. So now it's like, we got manga content, but they're still doing anime stuff and building that out until they can either do a manga for it or whatever have
and for some people, they don't take it seriously because there isn't nothing in the manga. They see it as kind of also a side. You know, we'll wait till the end. I'm not trying to have
it's Shueisha's way of owning the license still, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
You know what I mean?
Because literally something, so I talked about this, something that's been done that never been done was, by the time this series came out, a few things. One, animation was pristine. Clearly they had time and they worked on this shit.
They'd spent a whole year and a half on it before we ever saw it.
Clearly there was a plan in place, because all of these toys and all of these DLCs and all of these other things are ready to go, which
they
never
happened for the 40th anniversary. That's really what it comes down to. It was a 40th anniversary celebration.
I mean, Jay, I think Jay hit the nail on the head.
Right.
Dragon Ball is an entity now. It's like it's bigger than the program. It's bigger than anime. It's bigger than manga. It's bigger than video games. Like it's its own entity. So I think when you're judging it and you're looking at it, you can't judge it from the same lens as you judge everything else. I can't judge this anime like how I would judge a Jujutsu Kaisen. I just can't. I can't even judge this the same way I would judge a My Hero. Just because
do you judge a series kind of like just within the Dragon Ball realm?
Yeah, like you have to do, literally, you can only compare Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball. You can only compare it to within itself.
Anything that comes with the label Bird Studio, that's it. Like Bird Studio is everything Dragon Ball, dog.
And that's where everybody gets stuff about Dragon Ball wrong, is that we cannot compare it the same way. It's not in the same box as like these other animes that can come and go.
Right.
It's a forever franchise now.
Listen, man, Goku in the Macy Day Parade.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you said, like it has grown into a point, and obviously as anime grows bigger, that's amazing. But Dragon Ball has taken whatever and has separated itself, and it's bigger than the program. So it's just like, even when we do these things where I'm like, man, listen, Daima, this, like, all I'm ever doing is comparing Dragon Ball to whatever previous Dragon Ball product that we just got or we got before or anything like that, because there's nothing else I could compare it to. There's nothing else on its level in terms of influence, in terms of outreach, in terms of just like all of it. You're kind of just like, I could only compare this to the last Dragon Ball thing that I just got. Is this going to be better than that, or is it going to be worse than that? And if it's worse, I know that there's probably something coming within the next couple of years that's gonna distract me from this, because whatever. And I think Daima, though, what Daima did was great. Once again, I think it just took the best elements of everything. It even got down to giving us another Ginyu Force type ordeal. You know, like, it really took some of the
hit every pocket.
It hit every pocket. You give you this sense of adventure. You get like new transformations. Like, they did it right, and they did it to me in a way that didn't feel cheesy. It felt more organic than it did, you know, like even when you see Vegeta go Super Saiyan 3 for the first time as a kid, like even Bulma says, oh, you thought he was done training? Like, you thought he wasn't gonna achieve that either? So it's like everything felt organic and felt like, okay, like this is how naturally it would have rolled anyways.
Right. 80, any final thoughts on this matter before kind of thoughts on how you feel about the end of Daima and kind of like what the series kind of is, you know?
I mean, like I said earlier, like I just wish there was more to it. Like Daima being 20 episodes, I'm like, that's it, you know, like but as far as the ending and everything, like I was happy with it. You know, Super Saiyan 4 is, you know, it is a pop moment. But in the same regard of like, you know, us getting,
it's just as iconic as a lot of other transformations. More than others.
But I will say, like, the redesign of it is probably the biggest thing. You know, like that was actually really good to see. You know, it's not something that is, you know, trying to rehash GT in the same manner. They allowed us to show, you know, just something different. In a different way for the ending, though. I do hope that we get to see more of the Demon Realm. I know they'll probably expand on that a little bit more in Kakarot, because, you know, that's the adventure game versus Sparking Zero, which is the fighting game. You know, like I want to explore a little bit more with some of these characters, but I feel like they're gonna leave that to supplementary material.
I felt like they got a lot of it, to be real with you. Like 20 episodes. Typically, I think for the Dragon Ball genre, we're so enthralled with like battles and stuff and like threats and things. But I think they took it to the point where for like maybe, and I'm talking about like maybe like the first 12 episodes of this thing, you're really just exploring the demon realm and all three different worlds in it, and you're learning about the people, the ecology, the you know, the government. I feel like you've learned, not to say that like there couldn't be more, because there's more things that they've talked about that we haven't really seen yet. You know what I'm saying? Like super, what's it called? Super, the Glens, super good.
Supreme Kai's,
super, and all of this other stuff like that, and learning about stuff like, and they give you, you know, the Namekians. I mean, even the story with
you get the super OG Namekian in there.
We'll talk about that in a sense.
But like,
go ahead.
I would say, like, you know, people will probably say if we got more episodes, it would be filler, just because, you know, there's not any more supplementary material, but like exploring the world and doing random side quests. But one of my favorite episodes in it was like they crashed their ship for like the 50th time, and they have to repair it, and they're in the giant area of the second demon realm. You know what I'm saying? And we got to see, at least at the end of the episode, the giants walking around, them like going to school, having their own lifestyle and everything like that. Like, that was kind of dope. Like we kind of sped through the second demon realm just a little bit too much. Like that was
right.
But once again, that gave you that Dragon Ball feel. That same sense of adventure.
I just wanted more. Like, that's all it was. Just like, just give.
We all want more Dragon Ball, man. This is why we here.
I get that.
This is why we here. We've been wanting this for 6 years. I've been waiting 6 years to talk about a new Dragon Ball series.
I'll tell you what really was is that early Dragon Ball Daima felt like they were taking elements from Dragon Quest.
Yeah,
in terms of how it was a party in a group that's going on, and we're seeing each of these characters bring something to the table. Each one has a different strength that we can rely on to get the group forward. It definitely felt like an RPG, even with you having two separate parties that are trying to then eventually meet together and then start the real quest. Like that, considering the fact that Akira Toriyama had such a big hand in the creation of Dragon Quest back in the day, right? Like, I would imagine they probably wanted to pay homage to even that deeper level of adventure that they never really got to have in Dragon Ball because there was never enough time dedicated to it. You know?
Nah, for sure. That's a great point. I want to talk about the characters of Dragon Ball Daima because I did not realize until the end of the first episode how attached I was to Beerus and Whis as part of the show. When they were not there, when you see a dinner party happening, and I'm just expecting, Beerus and Whis are just gonna show up and be like, what's that over there? And then they just weren't. Like they weren't there. None of them were there. And I was like, this happens after the Buu saga and before that. So they're never going to be here. But what I'll say about this, Akira Toriyama and everyone who works on Dragon Ball, they'll give you some motherfucking characters to laugh at, to enjoy, to go through this. So the first few characters that we see, of course, are brand new characters. We see Goma, who is the big bad, kind of. I mean, not really big in stature at all. But he reminds me of. I mean, I think everyone would be like, "Yo," he kind of reminds me of Pilaf, someone who can actually execute the things that he can do at a higher level, with more powers and probably more danger and all this other stuff like that. We met Degasu, who is the younger brother of the Supreme Kai Shin. We learned about that. Dr. Arinsu, who is the older sister of Shin. And then they were like, "Yo, we don't have sexes, but yes, that's my sister." And I was like, "All right, bro, I feel you, but here." We're introduced to Pansy, who her being part of the crew. And then also like the similarity of this series with Dragon Ball GT and Pan and Pansy. And I'm just like, okay, I get get where you're going there. Who are your kind of like favorite new characters incorporated into the show?
I really loved Glorio a lot.
There you go. We Glorio hive over here.
Hey, man. That's what Goku called
Big Glow.
Face turn of the year. Face turn of the year at the end.
Yeah.
My son came in too clutch and learned a different language.
And honestly, I expected it from him the whole time. Really.
He didn't really do nothing that evil though.
Like, yeah.
I think he could have sabotaged him
working for Arinsu.
Bro, he was working. He was undercover. They turned him.
But even then, it was just like, okay, I'm just trying to get them there, right?
Yeah.
He was doing his job. He was making the calls on the side. He was following orders. He was on. Listen, he had an intent. Let's say that his intent was like, "Hey, I'm working for her. I'm gonna put on this little, mask to get them and do what I gotta do."
But the journey was the friends he made along the way, and that was
at the end, he was like, "You know what? These niggas is alright." It's like that's pretty cool. I fuck with.
And then Goku was like, "Glorio, you cool?" He's like, "Damn, you said my name."
Right.
Call me Glorilla the whole damn time.
I'm Glorio hive all the way, man. Listen, Toriyama always gonna give us a cool teenage character in a crop jacket. That's all I know.
Let me tell you something. He-Beast is so fucking funny.
Yes.
The little alien. Where he ends up trading his boat for the hat instead of like the date with the girl, and I'm just like this, like the deadpanness of it all, and his like very dry but cutting comedy
every
of it.
time.
I'm just like, where do you think of this person? Like, where do you think of this archetype of a person?
He's definitely got to be one of those characters that's like, there's always a character that's based on an editor or like somebody that like worked there. He definitely seems like one of those like just like straightforward Japanese people, but it's like you're so straightforward, it's funny.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
There's no second guessing of what he's thinking, saying any of that.
Majin Ku and Do, those are my guys.
Those are great as well.
Man.
Like, and they're different, distinct personalities, but also enjoyable personalities.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if they thought along the way that like, let's make this. If we're gonna get only 20 episodes, that means we don't really have to make them like evil.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have to go through the process of like Buu, Majin Buu, where it's like the first 20 episodes of us being introduced to Majin Buu or Fat Buu or all this other things. Good Buu. Whereas he's evil, but then he learns to be good. It's just kind of like they're playful, they're hilarious, they like a certain few things. Maybe that comes from Super a little bit more. I feel like, just because I feel like these characters in Super, not everyone was a major threat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And even in Dragon Ball, in a sense, I think with Dragon Ball Z, everyone you come in contact with is like, who you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they usually become evil, and they got to go through the process of being good, and then we got to figure out the process of how they fit in the group and all this other stuff, or not fit in the group.
I will say, like the when we first get introduced to Majin Ku and he comes up out the ground, it was like, oh shit, this man might be
looks
on
like
one.
Kid Buu.
Yeah,
like,
hold on, he might be kind of nice. And he faces the Tamagami. He's like, hold up, I quit.
I give up.
He's like, I'm not gonna beat him. But he's more of the intellectual, so I feel it. I feel it.
I like that, but I like that they took that route with those two characters, because I feel that if they would have went the route where, okay, we got two evil, Ku and Do, like it would feel like a rehashing. It's like, we're telling the
kind of
same
like Cell
story.
Max a little bit, but like not his thing.
Yeah,
I feel like, because Cell Max was more so like, okay, it's Cell without any of the like charisma or any of the things that make Cell, but I guess it's Cell. I mean,
Bio Broly.
One of those things. Let's see what else. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we didn't mention the OG like before, but never one of my favorites, the OG Namekian, who stayed behind. Like, I think his character was his character was really good. Like, him being in the background, like in the beginning when you see him revive all the Dragon Balls to like to just bring them back and then have them do the wish and everything. Like, he's like, oh shit, like this man, who you? But then he comes to helps the party, and like he's along for the ride. He helps with the Tamagami fight. He's like, let me just bring him out. Like, even
let's
to
talk
the
about
point,
Neva for a second, because he is very much like plot destroyer, armor creator. Because what he does through this entire show at various points, I was like, y'all niggas better bring him along at this point, because
y'all need him. Yeah.
Yo, he was pulling out all types of different styles and tricks. I was like, I ain't know he could do that. Even Piccolo was like, I ain't know we could do that.
Yeah, I was like, bro, yo, extra powers. Okay. I mean, I guess the Namekians kind of got leveled out. It was like in terms of usefulness to this kind of thing. But I was just like, okay, so you take the Dragon Balls and you decided to just revive them early, and you can do that, but you can't do that twice. But even doing it once itself is kind of nuts. And then they got to the point where Goma shuts down the travel, the warps between the worlds, and it's like, all right, well, I'm just gonna do some magic, and then just throws down all the barriers. And I was like, bro, bring you to Jujutsu Kaisen too, damn it! Like, come on, man. Like,
he would have fixed so much.
He would have freed Gojo so quick.
That's what I'm saying.
So I feel like low key, I think he'll be back in the series at some point.
He got to. Hey, and also gave me a moment that I could relate to Piccolo when Piccolo talked about not knowing his native language, I was like, bro, that's how I feel when I'm around my Puerto Rican family. I'll be like, bro, I'll be there.
That's funny as fuck.
Like, you can't speak Namekian, I can't speak Spanish. It's great.
Hey man, I was born on Earth, baby. I don't speak that thing. I was born Yuns a bit heights. I'm lucky I know anything else but the streets, bro. You know what I'm saying? But no, he's got flight, magic material. I'm reading this from fandom. Magic materialization, Dragon Ball manipulation, drawing out dormant power, being able to live long, energy shields. I was like, all right, bro. All right, you two.
Being able to live long as a power is great.
We could have brought you to the tournament of power, nigga. Like we could have. We could have done a couple
been
more
over
things.
there just like doing recovery for everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He would have been a healer the whole time.
Come on now. Bring back the Super Dragon Balls. Figure that out. But no, all these, I mean, there's a ton of characters. Pansy is cool. All the young, I mean, Bulma is always fun, just kind of like being a part of the series. It never really gets killed, never really in any kind of danger. The moments between her and Vegeta throughout this entire, like Vegeta having to travel with his wife, low key is funny.
It
like
was.
The fight with Goma and her being like, if you don't pull back, you know, it's curtains for bath time. Like
he was like, nah, man, listen,
he's
you're not getting between me and my wife.
I respect it. We gotta respect our king. He's a wife guy, man.
Yeah, listen, man. Yeah. He had his priorities straight. I respect it completely.
Yeah,
and we love that about Vegeta, man.
He was just like, hey, I could fade any day.
I could fade
any day. I'm not losing that.
It's so much different things. I like the Genardomy Force. I think that's how you pronounce it. Genardomy. Yeah. I mean, I like the King Kadan.
We gotta talk about how funny that 7-Eleven scene was.
Oh yeah, they pulled up with cool dude.
Some candy bars.
Yo,
I got you. I got you. Come on,
young blood.
First of all, the low-key understated funny part during the first part of this thing that Vegeta's in the club.
Yeah.
Like when the club scene is crazy because I'm like, why are they in the club? And he's just trying to get a meal. He's just like, yo, I just want something to eat. And
it's like when you go to the strip club for some wings. He's like,
regular Atlanta activities.
You know, like you like, man, listen, I just want some wings. I appreciate the ass shaking. Y'all go enjoy y'all time. I just want to get my food and get on out of here.
Right. But then he runs into the dudes and then beats them up in the club. So then they try to like, you know, spin the block on him and show up and he has to do it again. Like that stuff, small moments throughout this entire thing. And that's what I'll say. Like, I appreciated more kind of like watching these last 11 episodes that been in dub over the last number of days. I appreciated way more because like those are like hilarious moments, like low-key funny moments that are throughout the show. Let's talk about the plot. The plot of the show is pretty much established from the beginning. From the demon realm, they kind of see everything that's going on the other side. And they're like, hey, they have Dragon Balls. Let's use those Dragon Balls to... I forgot what he wanted. What did Goma wanted to use the Dragon Balls for? Or he wanted a new set because he didn't want to use the Dragon Balls.
Yeah, because he can't
their world.
Because it was too dangerous for the Tamagami.
Yeah, the Tamagami's there. So he's like, oh, let's go and steal their thing. So he goes. They use their Dragon Balls on the Earth to turn them all into children, which is something that we were used to. I think it was very... I would understand to fans of like, y'all just doing GT over again. But it's a very like lame service level. Like, obviously, there's more to the series than that.
Hey, I think the best part though too is that he thought Shenron was gonna give him a couple more wishes, and Shenron was like, "Nah, I do that for the."
I don't even know y'all.
He was like, "Nah, that's a homie perk. I don't do that for newbies."
Right. So they go to that world. So the entire plot is they have to go to the demon world to not only save Dende, but also make the wish to be able to turn them back into adults. Supreme Kai is there. We see the return of Goku's power pole, which is a very dope thing. And it's used throughout the series. We get various instances of like expanding on the lore of various characters, expanding on the lore of Supreme Kai's people, the Glens. And so expand on the lore of the Namekians. And then
Cybermen,
Cybermen, right? Like,
yeah.
Niggas been selling Cybermen from we got Cybermen from the Demon Realm. I'm interested in the relations between the Demon Realm and the kind of others. I'm assuming because of how many people left, like the Glens or the Namekians and stuff, like some of the Demon Realm things got leaked out to the outside world.
Well, that's what they were saying during at one point in the series, is that so many people kept escaping and causing havoc that they had to seal everything off.
Right.
So like I would assume like Bobbity Bibbity, that kind of stuff was just like that was a S tier threat, but there was a bunch of B, C tier threats that we just never even heard about.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And shout out to Deborah.
All that stuff just
the Deborah Abra stuff.
Yeah, we get a little bit more lore of that, and like, oh my god, I guess he did really run shit over there. Like you could have claimed it in Dragon Ball Z, and I guess we would have believed him, but it, like kind of seen the statues of him and all this other stuff like that, and then Goma was like, okay, I run the shit now.
Because he never showed back up, basically. Yeah.
And he got murked. He was like, damn, if that could happen to him, that could happen to anybody. What happened to Bobbity? Oh, he got murked too? Damn, man. Crazy, bro. Crazy. Might as turn them into kids, bro.
Yeah.
Also, let's not miss that Goku getting turned into a kid, getting the power pole back, but not getting his tail back, gave birth to one of the greatest Meelz texts I've ever gotten in my entire life. We off that monkey shit. We off
until the end too.
We off that monkey shit.
We back on monkey shit.
We be back on monkey shit at the end. But we was off monkey shit for a good 18 episodes.
Hey man, we off that monkey shit, bro.
I was like, damn, they didn't get my boy his tail back. They made him a kid again. He had no tail. I think that's a part of the lore. I was like, hey, I wanted the tail back. I was sick. Meelz was like, nah.
Gohan not even in this damn series. It was a damn shame. I get it, but
see him.
I get it, but I was like, obviously he was turned into a kid too. Like,
Piccolo is in like it's funny.
Like they don't like we see literally like everybody kind of hanging out except for Gohan. That man was not even drawn in this damn show except for a flashback.
Yeah, must have been shout out to Kyle Herbert. He must have been like, all right, well.
All right, yeah.
I guess I got the movie, so yeah, I get it. You know,
I can take a break.
Yeah, I guess. But I still like a check. Like, damn. Maybe he voices someone else in this. He does actually. Actually, no, he doesn't. Let's talk about the battles. What were your favorite? I mean, there's quite a few. It took a while to get to
honestly
the battles.
We got two bar fights.
They hit it out the park from the beginning. If we're talking about Goku versus Tamagami 3, that very first like big fight, like from the very first time you see Goku like go Super Saiyan and do that Kamehameha against them, and like they're doing that whole clash, like that whole episode is just perfect, honestly. And every
the thing
fight
is,
after that carried on.
And the thing is, I guess Dragon Ball is mostly known for how long and drawn out their fights go. Like there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of posturing. There's a lot of screaming. There's a lot of other that stuff.
It's only one fight in the whole show that takes more than one episode.
Yeah, this fight was very straightforward. I mean, considering all things, and I think it's a sign of the times. It's kind of like how anime kind of is in pacing. Because I know personally, like trying to go back to Bleach episodes, I'm like, bruh, this could be over in like 2 episodes. Like, but you got to go backstory. Like they didn't do any of that stuff because we know all these things, but there's such a delight. It's animated well. The choreography of the battles, the techniques of the battles, kind
honestly, of like the choreography specifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, they're gonna be kids again." Like it's GT, right? These battles without them being little, like the battles don't even feel the same.
Yeah,
right?
No,
because like them being little was what added the challenge to these characters that we know are
added the choreography to it. Like the fact that we got the power pole, you know, with a lot of like, you know, when Goku went to rescue Pansy, you know, the first time or whatever like that, right? When in the middle of the town square and him using the power pole to like smack around a lot of the different mobs, you know, him using it to extend his reach on a lot of different things. Like that's one of the better things that you wouldn't have gotten without that, debuff in a sense, like
Dragon Ball's
him
fight
versus
choreography
Glorio
hasn't looked like
I was just
anything
about
like
to bring that up. Him versus Glorio was very underrated. Like not even underrated, but it's just like
it was a spectacle.
Really good. Yeah, like
and I'll say like I'll say that was probably one of the best times where I've seen them like pace out like how they were going to do a lot of these different fights. Because he flashed into Super Saiyan without even doing it for real. And everybody's like, is he ever going to do it? Like he ain't popping out yet. And he just did it for a split second to like get everybody excited. And like, I know I was excited. Like, oh, it's about time. How many episodes was that? Like 5 or 6 episodes up to that point?
Yeah.
Like we know that Goku and Vegeta and everybody else, how strong they can be. And I think they put it as a caveat at the end of like when they get back to adults, they were like, we're still pretty strong, but our endurance isn't the same, because we've wasted so much energy.
Watching them, get acclimated to their new bodies over the course of time, have to get used to the intense gravity and air of the demon realm. Like all these little challenges that in any other Dragon Ball fight are just not there, right?
Yeah,
and the fact that they even acknowledge it, like Goku being like, man, like I can't fly because my body, I gotta get used to being in my kid body again. Like the fact that they're even able to acknowledge, like, hey, this is the roadblock I'm coming to with this, X, Y, and Z. Like it just adds to it. Like, because you're now you're like, okay, how are they gonna, how does this change their style? How is this gonna change how they fight? How is this gonna change how they power up? Like all these different things.
And then kind of like putting them against like various different elements, right? Like you see them versus the Tamagami is completely different than them versus the Kraken versus them versus the Genotomy force or something like that. Like there's so much different situations. And then finally like the big fucking raid battle against, against fucking Goma. It's there's so much different aspects to it. Or at least different varieties of fights that you're going through. And you see it from the perspective of them being as a kid, which makes it completely original and completely different from standard Dragon Ball fights that you would see. Because maybe as an adult, maybe we're looking as an adult, they have to depend on a lot of those things, the posturing and stuff like that. But as kids, they have to be a little more crafty, have a little bit more maneuvers to it. And to be honest with you, the Tamagami fights were the best.
Yes.
Like fights in the arc, and
even just the one they did against Majin Buu, like that one was tough.
And it's and it just presents a new. They're like, these Tamagami aren't evil, but they're challenges, right? And it's a way to challenge these guys without it having to be like without cutting off the knees of the threat that is looming overall. Like, so you aren't necessarily distracted. Like the overall threat is Goma, but it's not like you're like the androids, you know what I'm saying? Like the overall threat is Cell, and it's like you got to go through the androids though, or you got to go through this first. It's like they're obstacles to pass through, but ultimately they're all serving the main goal of the show, which is to get to Goma and defeat Goma and all this other stuff like that. So these fights were even just the everything was just well done. I want to talk about the before I talk, we circle right back around to the end. I want to talk about the moments about Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta and kind of like and Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 and stuff like that. Like, how did you feel about the transformations? Did you feel like, okay, we get into business beyond the fact of like what it's actually supposed to do, which is it sits in my mind, but ultimately it is what it is. How did you feel about that in service of the actual plot of the show? Did you feel like it was exciting? Did you feel like it was something that was needed? Do you feel like something it was not needed? Like, how do you necessarily feel about these new transformations introduced to the show?
I thought it was really cool to see that like Vegeta had made Super Saiyan 3 something of his own, right? Like the style of how he goes Super Saiyan 3, it doesn't look like Gotenks and Goku, which look the exact same, right?
Right.
So I really like that they had that, and there never was a mention of like, oh, he's he's having like a stamina drawback because he's in Super Saiyan 3. Like it seemed like his Super Saiyan 3 was a thing in and of its own. It's just it is that same form. And seeing Goku eventually go back to using that form, knowing at this point, like thinking like, oh, that's the strongest thing he's got, right? So then for it to be something where he naturally has his potential drawn out to become Super Saiyan 4, I thought it was a great follow-up.
And they gave him the red hair.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where it's just like it needed to go a certain sort of way to where if we're gonna do it now, let's make it to where it's not the exact same. So that way, if GT is still this thing that happens 15 years later, right? You can just as easily say like that's just a Super Saiyan 4 naturally, as opposed to this forced Super Saiyan 4 he got this time. You know?
Yeah. I'll say, like, in addition to that, I appreciate how they did it in the fact of like they didn't say it outright. We just saw the transformation, and as we were going through, it's like I didn't know he could do that. You know, like things like that. And it wasn't until the very end where they, Goku and Vegeta were breaking it down, and Goku's like, I didn't know you could go Super Saiyan 3. He's like, bro, what you talking about? This is Ultra Vegeta 1. You know what I'm saying? Like,
He's like, this is my thing, man. I like that.
Yeah. And I like too. I like the fact too that they didn't make a big deal of it.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. Like they were just like, "Hey, this thing is gonna happen." It wasn't like a whole, cutscene card on the episode and Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta question mark. It wasn't this whole like he's screaming for 15 minutes and then finally it happened. It's just like heat of battle. Especially when he does it the first time Vegeta does as a kid, where where OG Namek was like, you know what, you like fighting, cool, I'm gonna make him stronger for you.
Yeah.
Let me raise the stakes for you. And Vegeta's like, all right, cool, boom, does it. You're like, oh shit. And then it's like they keep going, like they're not staying stuck on it, they're not making it this whole ordeal, but they're like, here's this thing that happens, and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, this just heightened the whole fight for me now. Like this whole moment now is like, it is great. I think even with the with Super Saiyan 4, they didn't kind of make it a screaming match for 50. Like I'm gonna draw out this latent power. They had a beautiful cutscene or like moment of the transformation. Then it was just like, all right, we're going right back into this battle. Like you get it, boom. We're getting back on track. We're not gonna deter you. We're not gonna like sit here and make this one focal moment. Like it happens, great. Like let's keep going.
Can I just say how wild it is that Mappa
worked on Dragon Ball DAIMA.
Mappa work on Dragon Ball. Like that's kind of like nuts, considering all the like just from growing up and kind of the animation that happened in the original Dragon Ball. Kind of seeing Mappa, who's at the forefront of a lot of great anime, working on Dragon Ball. I'm sure for the animators it's like a dream. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all I can think of. It's like, yo, it must be a dream to be able to work on it. I laughed so hard at Goku pulling his shirt off to kind of like sell the the Super Saiyan 4 thing, because the question is like, did he
where'd that shirt go? Like somebody in the animation team was definitely like, okay, here's the answer. He just gets rid of it. Like,
and it's like a crudely drawn. It's not like a great scene. Like, it's not like a dramatic toss throw. It's just like, let's just add that in.
But I prefer that little detail. Like that's what makes Daima what it is. Those little bitty things, like Goku having the big ass monkey hands,
bro.
Like
when he runs on all fours,
when he runs on all fours, like you know what I mean. Like going back to the whole, like, no, that's what Goku is he's the Monkey King, just in this story, right? Like bringing that all back. If this is gonna be a culmination of the past 40 years, I loved it.
It was amazing. Let's talk about the, kind of like Dragon Ball DAIMA ends. They end up, it's in a funny way. I mean, as far as villains having to be defeated, getting knocked in the head 3 times to get the eye out is funny. 80s
Piccolo is the new bitch boy, bro. Like he can't have nothing, dog. Like,
no, bro, come on, man. He ain't get no transformation. You ain't see. They had transformations to give around, and he ain't even get one.
Like, I understand he got the movie and everything. You know, I guess they let him have the back burner, but like, he had one job. If there was anything he had to do in this series, it was just that.
I knew when he got eliminated from Tournament of Power in the way he did that he was not. But the nigga just fell. It was just like
got knocked out by an invisible little guy.
Yeah. I was just like, all right, we playing Piccolo, but I guess he's got to get out of here at some point. Let's talk about the lasting question at the end of Dragon Ball DAIMA, which is the question on everybody's mind. And the question that everyone kind of like brought up after it ended was, is this canon somehow?
Yeah.
Yeah, it gotta be.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm not
yeah.
Look,
it's easy. I'm gonna make it make sense, right? They said this is 6 months after Dragon Ball, after the events of Boo. We've seen Dragon Ball Z. We know there's a 10-year gap.
Yeah.
And stuff happens. Super is in that 10-year gap. This is before Super.
Right.
There can be a movie or something that happens to fill in what the continuity errors.
Yeah, like it could be nothing, bro. It could just be that nothing happens.
And my thing is this: does it matter?
No,
it doesn't.
No, because at the end of the day, they're just gonna write Goku say,
"Well, actually."
Yeah, you know, it's a very well actually question. Like, well, is this canon or I mean, like, hey. Listen, they told us up front, hey, this is 6 months after Boo. Hey, that's all you gotta tell me.
Yeah.
That's enough for me. It's 6 months after Boo. Cool. All right. Keep it pushing. Like, I don't know what more. I don't know. I think once again, it's the gift and the curse of being Dragon Ball, where you can only compare it to yourself. So there is no other focal point that you can compare it to. Like, there's nothing else that you can compare it to.
You know what you're gonna get for the most part, bro. Like, because it's Dragon Ball. So at the end of the day, like, we know what we're gonna get. If they give us more and they expand on the lore, like, I didn't know they were gonna expand on the lore this much that they did as it is. You know what I'm saying? So like, the fact that they even did that, they gave me more than what I asked for. And the fact that like all of this can be canon, come on, man.
Yeah. I'm gonna be real. It's literally just it was some loose stuff in Daizenshu 9 that it was just like, yo, why did you bring that up in this book? Like, it's literally like there's an image in this old guidebook. It shows, okay, here's how the world works, and here's how the universe works, and then there's this little circle outside of it, and it says this is the demon realm, and it's just like, wait, well, huh? Like, yeah, that's where Dabura comes from. And then it explains like all these little things, all those little details wound up in Daima. Like, they just made a show out of those extra details. And I'm glad, because this stuff already existed, and stuff like Xenoverse and Dragon Ball Heroes. They've been introducing kids to this stuff for the past 10 years, 15 years. Yeah, Dragon Ball Heroes is around for 14 years. So clearly, when it comes to Dragon Ball, it's not one of those things where it's like DC and Marvel, where it's like, oh, I don't know which story I'm at. Like, they're just like, hey, this is the story we want to show you of this. Like, this is, you can kind of loosely say this is when it takes place. Outside of that, just enjoy this new story for Goku, you know?
And the cool thing about it is that it takes place in a completely different world, in a completely different setting. You're not even in the Earth realm. You're not even like in Earth.
You're not bothered by nothing. Like,
nothing. Like, this.
So they could do whatever they wanted to. And it's just like, yeah, that's how it works. Duh. You know?
So, two more things after this. Well, one, the other question that everyone asks now is GT canon? I think people have been trying to kick GT off the map for the last 30 years. I believe whatever Jay says.
No, I mean, it's like this, bro. If GT wasn't canon, we wouldn't get Super Saiyan 3 again. If GT wasn't canon, we wouldn't have gotten a bunch of hero stuff that we wouldn't have seen all the Gohan Super Saiyan 4 and Broly Super Saiyan 4 and all the stuff that we have on all these games. In Japan, it's just as simple as there's a show and there was these things that happened, and there's all kinds of content we can pull from for all of that. Right. When it just
opens up possibilities.
Like, the moment we got like in Goku Black, you know, there's alternate timelines of like 12 different things because of these events. I'm like, all right,
you could literally just say one of those is GT and just call it a day.
Well, that's my next part to this. It's like we talked about Dragon Ball being a forever thing now.
Yeah.
At this point, we're getting closer and closer to stories kind of like being told. I mean, we've already had them kind of experience, but we're getting closer and closer to kind of just stories being told that will have to live outside the standard timeline potentially. I look at it as like, think of, and maybe I'm bugging for this, but when you think of the Pokemon games, after a certain point, they started explaining like this doesn't happen in the same timeline as
they started making different universes and stuff.
Yeah. Right, because they had to explain like, why do these niggas know this Pokemon and not this Pokemon?
Yeah.
But I feel like as Dragon Ball goes on, I mean, we have the continued lore for Super, which we get into, the lore for GT. Who knows if they'll redo GT, or they certainly have the possibility. Who knows if they I mean, we've asked for this pretty much since the inception of this podcast, for a reanimated Dragon Ball. And I think even with a reanimated Dragon Ball, they can change things around there too, to kind of play more into the Z stuff that happens afterwards, or the Super stuff that happens in the four, or even the Daima stuff. So I feel like there's so much possibilities now. And I think ultimately what I'm saying is the argument is kind of like, it's a moot point at this point, because there's so much things are going to be happening in the future. But ultimately, like you said, these are stories that are being told still within this universe. And even Daima adds more to the lore of Dragon Ball Z, adds a little bit to, I don't know if it adds too much to Super, to be honest with you.
No, it does.
It does. But I mean, yes, to Super and to all these other things. Like, this is kind of like where the content is coming from, and I'm interested to see if they continue this in the future, especially with Toriyama's passing, because this is the last series he truly worked on. Interested to see if they continue forward making. I mean, they'll continue making.
Akio Yoku's made it very clear that they got like a 25-year plan.
Yeah, and it's made. Listen, the
how
toys
far
for this
left do they have to go for y'all to be like, okay, maybe that's
no, but they're pretty far. Like the toys that are made, I say this every time. I said every new transformation is just a marketing thing. Like
Ultra Super Saiyan God Instinct.
Yeah, it is. Sell toys, sell video games, sell content, sell all this other stuff like that. Like we're getting to that point where I think the original, where the lore of the original Super Saiyan, I don't think we get that as much anymore. I think the last thing, maybe like Ultra Instinct in a sense, where they hinted at the beginning of the series, and eventually builds up to that point. But I'm not sure if we get these moments now. I'd look at like the new Gohan form or the new Piccolo form, where they just kind of like seemingly come out of nowhere ultimately. While there is a little bit of a hint for it seemingly comes out of nowhere, I think low-key that's kind of where a lot of these transformations lately have been coming from.
It's marketing tools, right?
Yeah.
But that goes right back to what I said in between, like how the manga and the animes are handled. Yeah. Because they can't make any other money off of, like, they back themselves in the corner by making this like stuff with Moro and Granola and Ultra Ego Vegeta, where the only thing those are selling are manga volumes. Yeah. That's it. You won't find a toy, you won't find them in a game, you won't find them nowhere else, because Shueisha's got that locked down. So they have to keep coming out with all this other new stuff in the anime, in the games, in these other areas where Bandai is able to touch and say, boom, we can put that in a quarter. And then this comes out, and that comes out, and that comes out, and there's synchronicity, right? That's what Dragon Ball just basically has become. And I know that sounds gross for people who are like, no, I don't want to look at this thing that I love as a franchise. You can love it and still accept the fact that that is, you know.
I mean, listen, it's no different. Like you said, it's no different than Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's no different than fucking Power Rangers.
Yeah.
It's no different than a
Super
lot
Sentai
of
50 years of strong now.
Listen, like it's no different. And it's just like, but that's what makes Dragon Ball what it is that it started off as this, and it was able to come over here into the Western world and fucking.
I mean, honest to God,
take off.
Like, when we talk about what's Dragon Ball gonna look like now that Akira Toriyama's been gone, Super Sentai and Kamen Rider are the example, bro. Like Shotaro Ishinomori, the manga creator that made those back in the 70s, he passed away in 2001. Toei and Bandai has owned that ever since. And it's just been franchised out. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what Dragon Ball is gonna be. We're gonna see just a different take on something. I feel like we are closer to a remake of Dragon Ball than we are far away from it.
I agree.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree.
Like 45th anniversary, 50th anniversary. We're just like you see the new
Ranma 1/2.
Ranma 1/2 and Meison Ikoku, and you know what I'm saying? There's all these 80s shows that are they're coming back, 70s animes that are all coming back. Dragon Ball is one of those that the kids over there, they see it and oh, that's that old man thing. They're gonna have to bring the old man thing to that in a way that looks better, so that way those kids can be like, oh yeah, that's our thing too. Otherwise, that's how they're always gonna see. That's why Daima exists, so that way
as
kids,
long as it doesn't lose the soul, they can't take the soul out of the original. If we ever get to the point where Dragon Ball comes back, because we've had those
a new Goku, just like Goku with shorts and shit.
You know what? I'm honestly, I would say we do eventually get that, but they tried that. His name was Gohan, and they wound up going back to Goku. So I don't know.
We're gonna get with Goten and shit.
And then they went back to Goku. So it's
it reminds me of what they did with Digimon 2020, which was, in my opinion, pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh God, I remember when you attempted to watch that. That was funny.
I mean, I still watched it all, but I did not enjoy it.
It's not that bad.
I will get to it.
Okay.
Final things. Final grade for Daima. Let's give Daima a grade. If you had to give it a grade overall, what grade are you giving Daima?
A strong A. Yeah. I'm taking into mind that this is meant to be a 40th anniversary thing. It's meant to bring together the kids that don't know about it, us that have known about it all our lives, and the people that have, like you said, the lapsed fans. I feel like it did enough for that. And it's gonna have a good. It's gonna stand its test better than GT did. Years ago away from GT, and people are like, I don't like it for this, that, and the third, and valid reasons, right? I don't think you're gonna see that as much with Daima.
Okay, quick GT comment though. If they bring back what they did with the dragons, I'll
take that. I'll take that.
You bring back the shadow. I feel like because
bring back
Toyotaro is big on I'm just gonna bring that back eventually.
Maybe in Shadow Dragons.
Bring back the Shadow Dragons, or they gotta. Hey, listen, that was some heat.
Yeah,
that was some heat.
That's got to come back eventually.
Yeah,
no, for sure.
Yeah, but grades.
What's your grade?
Yeah. What's your grade?
I got to give it an A. I mean, it did everything that you really wanted it to do, and it did it at a high level. It had the viral moments. It had the nostalgia, but it had the kind of freshness, newness, kind of we'll take a different, take a different way to it. It had everything, and it did everything right. It didn't go too far off on the realm of what we believe what Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z is. It followed the formula, but but it works. There's a reason why Dragon Ball is around. The formula works, and once again they gave us another hit where we're like, I liked it, and like you said, it gave something for the new fans, it gave something for the old fans, it gave something for the tweeners. Overall, it was really, really good. I got to give it an A.
I'm stuck somewhere in between B+ and A, only because I wanted more. That's it. Literally, I wanted more from more character moments. We got a whole bunch of good character moments, but some of the stuff with Piccolo kind of irks me. But him bouncing off of Neva was really great to see. We got Supreme Kai and more of his lore. We even got his real name that I can't remember. But you know what I'm saying? Stuff like
something
that.
ethnic.
Yeah, it was Narima.
Nahare.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's in the dub. It's like Nahare. I think it's called Nahare. Yeah. Very ethnic. It was like, all right, black.
And only thing I wish that happened, I wish Neville would have pulled Piccolo aside and whispered in his ear, "We was kings."
Yeah. You the true green Israelite. You know what I mean?
And then fucking All the Stars by Kendrick. Starts playing and shit.
Yeah, even with Dende,
Herb and shit. You know what I mean? But no. Honestly, I want to ask you though, AD. Like I know you said you wanted more. Do you feel like it's better that you wanted more from this?
And that's what I was struggling with. Like,
versus
it didn't overstay its welcome.
Where it kind of feels like, you know what? I'm glad we left this where it is.
So here's the other thing,
because it took forever to get.
I'm a struggle with Super on that answer because the manga didn't overstay its welcome as much as the anime did.
Because it's like based on
but like at the same time, that's why I'm like I can give it an A because it didn't overstay its welcome and we didn't get a lot of things that came out in a long time. Everything we got was like fresh, new, and it was to the point. We didn't have any drawn out conversations to explain. Oh, he didn't tap into his power. Oh, he looks like he's powering down. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like we didn't get none of that. Like everything was in retrospect just like what we needed and it was to the point. You know, I can give it an A. I just wanted more for like the story and like exploring the world as as One Piece fan. I got to see more of everything that's going on. But like I
felt a lot like One Piece in some ways.
So I'm not gonna complain about too much.
That's crazy. I feel like the Russian judge because I'm giving it a B. Okay. I feel like while it has some very high moments, and I'll say the moments that are high are very, very high. It does drag a lot. Even going through the thing, it definitely does drag a lot. Like there's a charm to all the adventure thing, but there's also a pace that the show, a very, very slow pace.
The biggest thing. Oh, sorry, Meelz.
No. And like a few of the tropes kind of like are revisited, and I'm just kind of rating it as an anime series, just kind of like overall, and while taking in Dragon Ball just in general, but pacing kind of things. I'm big on plot, of course. Final battle. I had while I love the final battle, the end of it's kind of like also like, but okay. But it's got to end. But it ends in like maybe the most Dragon Ball way ever, but also like,
because they weren't gonna kill him.
They weren't gonna kill him.
I'll say it does end in a. I'll give it a B plus because like when I think about it too. Because here's the thing.
You done swayed him. You done dropped the grave.
That's why I'm strong now. Because here's the thing, right? On one hand, like we did have 7 straight episodes where they may or may not have crashed this ship or the ship got lost or something like that. And that's in the beginning. I would have like if they brought back the returning joke of like it happening in the end and they had to crash land at the bar where they find, all the medibugs or whatever like that. Even some of the stuff that they explain or like bring up with the medibugs, you had the theory crafting. It doesn't get used for real.
I could see how people would be watching the series, hoping to be excited, and then fall out the series at some point because nothing is really happening or nothing of any true, especially like major plot substance is happening yet. Because it's like, oh, they're looking for Dragon Balls. Oh, okay. I'll call me back when the plot finally begins. And to be honest with you, to me, the plot doesn't really like start moving towards a thing. I have the same critique about Demon Slayer because Demon Slayer, one thing happens in like 2-3 seasons, and then we're at the end. But with Dragon Ball, there's a lot of episodes that kind of happen where nothing really major is happening until the pieces started moving, until the witch starts creating the Majin Boos, and they start finding the Tamagamis, and they start getting closer to the Dragon Ball, and then the third eye is introduced somehow. I was like, oh, okay, the third eye, yeah. And so much different other things. But the end, I mean, the moments that are high are very, very high. Like when I saw Super Saiyan Vegeta 3, when I saw Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta and Super Saiyan 4 Goku, I was like, you motherfuckers got me again. Like, you did it because this is what I would like. Like, this is what we would want. So that's why I'm so skeptical of it. But yeah, I give it a B.
I think that's fair.